Thank you for attending our second USF Research and Innovation Eminent Leaders Series. Our guest speaker is Dr. Aurali Dade. You know, we have Daisy here.
I do, yes. People can't pronounce my last name. I'm like,
Daisy. She is the program director of the Convergence Accelerator program at USF, which is part of the new directorate for technology, innovation, and partnerships. And just to give you a little bit of introduction about Dr. Dade, she has a PhD in environmental science and master's in biology.
And a BS in environmental biology, so you have all of them, right? All the stuff. She, as I said before, she is part of, or actually one of the program directors for the Convergence Accelerator leading track E, which is the networked blue economy. She is also the Associate Vice President for Research and Deputy Research Officer at George Mason University. And prior to that, she was the Interim Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Economic Impact. She has worked in many areas that launch anything that has to do with sustainable earth, university-level institutes, and her own research focus on development, integrity, and assurance. And it's a pleasure to welcome her today.
thank you very much for the nice introduction. I am delighted to be here today. I have not been to USF before, so it's really nice to be here. Everybody's been really welcoming. I am here visiting Dr. Trotz, who's in the front row here, for a site visit from the National Science Foundation, because she is one of our awardees in the Convergence Accelerator program that I'll be talking about a little bit later on. I'll try to give you an overview of the new directorate at NSF, talk about a few of the programs that might be of interest, and then I'll do a deep dive into the Convergence Accelerator program. We did just announce the upcoming topics, so that is an opportunity that some of you in the room might be interested in pursuing. Aurali is my first name, that's fine. If you want to talk to me afterwards, that's fine to use Aurali. All right, let's see if I can get the clicker going. Okay. I am not sure, and it doesn't seem to want to advance. I'll just.
Get up there.
I can't get it to advance up here too. I actually, did it go? Okay.
Just need to point it somewhere else. There we go.
Okay, there we go. All right, it's working now. I have about a 50% chance of some kind of technical difficulties when I give presentations. So NSF, as most of you in the room probably know, is the nation's science funding agency. We focus on science broadly, engineering, mathematics, social science, and the mission of the organization is to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense and for other purposes. And that's really important to kind of understand the scope of what we do, to understand if we're the right place to pursue funding opportunities, as opposed to NIH, for example, that has a much more health-focused mission than NSF. We have some core values that are up there. We do promote scientific leadership and diversity and inclusion, and integrity and excellence is really important to our mission as well as to the scientific community. So we'd like to share a few numbers here so that you have a sense of the foundation overall. 93% of our budget funds projects. So we are focused on research and education and related activities. So we do not have a big operational focus. What our mission really is to get money out to the scientific community to make advances and to carry out projects such as Dr. Trotz's project. We did have a little bit larger budget last year, but this is the 2022 number, which was $8.8 billion. And you can see we do receive a high volume of proposals from the scientific community at about 43,000 proposals, funding about 11,000 of those proposals that come in. I won't read all of these, but you can see that there are an awful lot of people supported by NSF, as well as educational activities supported. So a year ago, yesterday, actually, we launched the Technology Innovation and Partnerships Directorate in response to clear signals we were getting from the country that NSF needed to invest in these areas of thinking through how scientific innovations make it out into the real world and how we can strengthen partnerships to make that happen. So we see this as a defining moment. NSF continues to invest in a broad spectrum of scientific activities, but a new focus is on these more community-focused, more transitional-focused activities. I don't need to necessarily say this, but we like to include the slide to just say we recognize there are some really pressing issues that we as a society and as a world need to address. And that we do recognize that the science and engineering enterprise can meet the moment that we're in by thinking about different ways of approaching our work. So that's what the new directorate is all about. It's a horizontal across the entire foundation. We fund work from every discipline. We fund work from different types of organizations, not just universities, also the private sector. And the idea is to take the strengths that have been building in all these other directorates and enhance them and build upon them. So this is the description of what TIP is about. We want to advance those critical and emerging technologies that our nation needs to address those pressing issues and translate research results from lab to market and society. And the idea is to improve U.S. competitiveness, but also look at workforce, the future for high-wage jobs in the U.S., and growing the U.S. economy. So you're going to hear me say accelerating quite a bit. I was recently working on a solicitation, and I think we had accelerating 3 times in one sentence, so that was a little excessive. But we are trying to accelerate the pace of what we do. TIP does foster innovation and technology ecosystems, and I'll talk a little bit about a couple of opportunities that specifically focus on the research ecosystems, the innovation ecosystems. We also establish transition pathways by supporting teams that are taking innovations from the lab out into the market, and also funding infrastructure support systems that support that transition. And then also partnerships are a big part of what we do. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more depth when I get to the Convergence Accelerator program, because partnerships are critical to that program as well as all of the other programs in the directorate. This just gives you a sense of what this new directorate looks like. And I should back up a little bit. Some of you in the room might not know how NSF is organized. Similar to the university, where you have different colleges that focus on different things, the foundation has these different directorates that focus on different things. So on a previous slide, you might have seen ENG, so that's the engineering directorate, where they fund engineering projects, for example. So we're cross-cutting across all of those other directorates. And my role is within the Convergence Accelerator program here in the Innovation and Technology Ecosystems group. You maybe are aware of a recent large opportunity called Regional Innovation Engines. That's also in the same group. And we have a couple of other programs listed up there. A second group that has a history, but also a lot of new programs is this Translational Impacts Group. So that's where America's Seed Fund, or you may have heard it called SBIR, STTR, is located. Innovation Corps is there. Partnerships for Innovation is there. So these are existing programs that came into the new directorate. But then there's also new programs that have been announced in the last year. And then we have a strategic partnerships office that is still being kind of built out. So as I noted, I'm going to quickly go through these. I'm not an expert in these other programs. I am an expert in the Convergence Accelerator, so we can get in the weeds there. But I would be glad if anyone after the talk wants to connect with me to introduce you to a program director in one of these other programs if it's of special interest, because you'll want to talk to them about, you know, how they're envisioning their program and what they're hoping to fund, etc. But I did work on this one as it was being developed. So I did some outreach. So I am a little more familiar with this one. The Regional Innovation Engines program was announced, I think, about a year ago, to a lot of excitement. We had a lot of outreach related to this. This is a large program. The idea is to stand up these engines of innovation and research in local areas, and local is broadly defined, so it could be a metro area in the surrounds, or it could actually be several metro areas coming together as a region. We left it up to the proposers to define what they meant by regional. And there are two types of funding opportunities within this program. For those regions that believed they had really good networks in place and they were really ready to accelerate innovation within their region, there is an opportunity that's up to $160 million for 10 years. And then the teams that weren't quite ready to launch the engine immediately could apply for $1 million for up to 2 years for that planning opportunity and to really build the networks. This just closed in January. So if you're considering it and you didn't apply, you'll want to look for the next cycle that comes out, still to be announced. Another new program, and I believe this one has a September deadline. Please don't quote me on the deadlines. If you decide you're interested, go and take a look, is called the Excellent program. So Excellent is the idea of bringing partnerships together where around emerging technology fields with those experts in workforce development. So you take an organization that is working in some high-tech area and you partner it up with an organization that has a lot of expertise in training people and develop a program to enhance workforce development in the high-tech area. These are $1 million awards for a 3-year period. And a lot of these programs will have NSF curriculum associated with them. And I'll talk a lot more about that when we get to the Convergence Accelerator. But unlike some other types of grants, it's not just, you know, here's the money, do the work, give us our report back. There's a lot of engagement in these programs, and we bring in experts to provide training to the actual teams that are funded by the programs. There are also programs that focus specifically on if you're an individual that wants to be entrepreneurial, there's an opportunity for that. Or if you have an idea that is sort of at the what we call a low fidelity prototype stage, and you're ready to accelerate that more towards a prototype. Or if you want to partner with your idea and continue to develop a technology, there are programs for that. And as I mentioned, many of these programs came over. So I-Corps, who's heard of I-Corps? Yeah, this is one of our longer standing programs. It is part of TIP now. And there are a lot of people engaged in this one. My home institution is part of a new I-Corps hub, but before that we were a site or a node. I can't actually remember if it was a site or a node, but these programs have been around for a while. And the idea is to take NSF-funded faculty, students, and other researchers and train them in entrepreneurship and innovation. And there's a lot of engagement. There's a lot of getting out to your end users and talking to them and figuring out how to develop a product that really will meet their needs. As you can see, almost 6,000 people, when the slide was made, had been trained since 2012. It probably is more than that now because this cycle of training is constantly happening, and over 1,000 startups created. So if you have that entrepreneurial bug and you're a scientist or an engineer, or you know, this is the program where you can get a lot of entrepreneurship training. Apologies, I keep going back. Partnerships for innovation is intended to address what is called the Valley of Death. You've probably heard about this, where innovation happens, a new technology is developed, and there's just this period of time where there needs to be a little bit more investment to try out that innovation before you can get external private investors interested, for example. So this program funds people who have been funded by NSF to take those innovations to the next stage and get them ready to go to market, to get further private investment. And this one is up to 1.5 million for 24 to 36 months. This is one of the new programs. It's called POSE. And the idea for this one is to actually take open source kinds of activities and further develop them. So you can see it's all of these programs are actually a significant award to get to continue these ideas. One of the things that our assistant director, Erwin, likes to say is moving at speed and scale. That's kind of the whole idea behind TIP, and I think the director uses that phrase as well. So that's why the scale part is why larger investments are being made, but also if you've had the experience of taking something from the lab and trying to get it to the market, you know that there's just a lot of different kinds of investments that are needed, and it can be expensive. So that's why these programs do tend to be a little bit larger. There is a phase 1 and phase 2. Similar to what you'll hear in the Convergence Accelerator. Sorry, I'm going to pause right here. I have somebody waiting in the lobby on my screen. I don't know if there's somebody trying to get into the presentation, but it just keeps flashing at me, so I thought I'd mention it. So anyway, this one is focused on open source ecosystem. So if you have something that you're not going to lock down and protect, but needs more investment, this is a good program for that. Okay, and now the clicker doesn't seem to want to work again. There we go. It worked. Okay. I just getting you a little extra exercise there. So America's Seed Fund, or SBIR, STTR, is also a program that has been around for some time. You can see some of the numbers here as to what has been invested in with this program, and also see the phases. So the idea is to take an innovation, invest in a startup that's going to develop and transform that technology to really get out to market or get out to end users and have an impact. And this is just another sort of by the numbers slide where you can see that these are figures that they've pulled from PitchBook from 2015 to 2022. And there is a lot of activity here. $20 billion of follow-on funding, for example, 300 successful exits, which are acquisitions, mergers, IPOs, and you also here, you can see a lot of investment is going into new people. So 59% of the awards go to first-time awardees, for first-time SBIR, STTR awardees. Is something else going on?
Is there another person?
No?
No.
Okay. So this is another program that I worked on as it was being developed and is of special interest to a place like FSU. So the idea, and I don't know, maybe you're not in this category, I haven't done the background research, but the idea is to take institutions that have been funded pretty significantly by NSF, typically R1 institutions, and invest in capacity building activities that enable even more translation to come out of the institution. Maybe you have a great record of translation. Like I said, I didn't look at you all specifically, but this was just announced. It's open now, and it would be an effort that would need to be led by a leader at the institution who could make commitments on behalf of the institution. There's a really good webinar that they did, if this is of interest, that you might want to take a look at. My colleague Pradeep, who's also part of the Convergence Accelerator team, hosted that webinar. So it's available online if you just Google Accelerating Research Translation, NSF. And capacity building could take a lot of forms. It could be shoring up your technology transfer. It could be doing a lot of engagement with your faculty to build up more entrepreneurial capacity, engaging students in this activity. There's a lot of different potential ways that you could approach this as a proposer. So certainly if you have any, oh, I do have another person to admit. Certainly if you have any other questions about that, reach out to me. I am more familiar with this, but I'll connect you with my colleague Pradeep as well. I think it's after I admit somebody, it doesn't want to advance the slide. So the next slide, and I'm glad for these slides to be shared, they're open. So if whoever organized the talk, if you want to send them out to everyone who attended, that's fine, because this is a little bit of an eye chart. There's a lot on here. I imagine most people in the room want to look at the academia opportunities, but this just sort of breaks down some of the opportunities within TIP that you might want to think about proposing to. So in summary, here in the background, you can see these are the different directorates that I mentioned, how NSF is organized. And the idea is we go across all of these directorates and help to build upon the great science and engineering that they've already invested in. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick breath. We're going to transition to the Convergence Accelerator program, which is the one I do know a lot about. I am a program director, part of this team, and the program is now in its 5th cycle. So Dr. Trotz and her team were part of the 3rd cycle. We generally fund different topics each cycle. So I'll talk about what the upcoming topics are that were just announced in case you didn't catch the announcement. So this was one of the existing programs that came into the new directorate, not one of the oldest, not one of the newest. We're sort of in the middle. We're still seeing how well we're producing the outcomes that we're hoping to produce, because we just graduated our first cohort last summer. But the idea of the program is to take models, technologies, what we call solutions, and invest in them and invest in teams by providing a lot of services, including curriculum, coaching, meeting regularly with me, not that that's the greatest of my other PDs, with other teams, really trying to build this environment that is supportive of these projects, but still puts a lot of stress on moving them forward at the same time. The goal really at the time that this was launched was to disrupt the normal NSF model. One of the ways that we did that, and you maybe have noticed on some of the recent solicitations, is by issuing a grant solicitation at the same time as we issue a broad agency announcement. And if you're not like in the government or in the grants office, you might not realize why that's a big deal, but the reason it's a big deal is it opens up opportunities for different types of organizations to work with NSF. So a broad agency announcement, the lead proposer, for example, could be an NGO or could be a private organization and work with us a lot more easily than sort of the traditional way of doing things, which was to mostly fund universities. The idea also is to have a national scale impact with this program. So you see what the investment is on another slide. And we really focus a lot on milestones, deliverables, impact, use inspired, like really getting out there and talking to people and understanding what they need, and accelerating at speed. So I'll talk about what that means. And many of the people in the room who are part of Blue Gap have been through that, and they can tell you whether they thought it was fast or not, but the feedback we get is that it is an accelerated program. This is just the team. You'll have the slides, so you'll be able to see who we all are. And this is how the program works. So we have what we call an ideation process. We open up a call to the community and we say, what topics do we need to invest in? What topics are ready for this approach, ready for acceleration, ready for investment, so that we can take and build upon the basic science that we've already funded. We host about a dozen workshops. From there, we fund, I should say, other people host them. We fund them, we attend, we participate, we engage, we get workshop reports, and then within NSF, not only in our office, but also across all of the directorates, we vet those reports and we say, you know, what's the feedback here? What topics should we fund this next cycle? So it's really a sort of bottom-up kind of approach where we're reaching out to scientists and engineers and really the whole community. Tell us what you think is ready for this kind of program, this kind of investment. Then we'll issue our Dear Colleague letter to announce the topics, which we have already done for this cycle. We'll issue our solicitation a couple months later, and then take proposals for phase one. In phase one, we fund typically between 15 and 20 teams at $750,000 each for a 9-month period. So it is a year-long grant, but it really is a 9-month effort because there's a curriculum involved that the teams participate in. They go through things like human-centered design, team science, marketing, communication, and outreach, a whole host of topics I'm not thinking of while I'm giving the presentation right now, but it is an intense, approximately 6-month curriculum. And at the end of that, the team will have taken their idea that they came in with and poked it from every angle and talked to a lot of people about it and really come up with what they think is a great plan for the second phase, which is a $5 million investment over 2 years. And then we get proposals, we get pitches from those phase one teams, and bring in experts to advise us on panels like NSF typically does, and then we select our phase two teams. In the past, that has been between 3 and 5 teams per track. We were able to do a lot of lobbying for the track E and track F, that is with track E in the cohort, and we were able to take 6 teams forward for phase 2 in this program. So Blue Gap is one of those 6 teams. So as you can tell, this is taking a very wide aperture, and it gets more and more competitive to be part of the program. So it is quite extraordinary that this team is one of the track E teams, and I'm really glad to be here seeing their work. Yeah.
In phase 1, about how many teams do you have?
About 15 to 20. We had 16. Yeah. And we don't issue funding rates. We don't publish our funding rates, but it is a very competitive program. You do have the advantage of having some experts here that have already received an award. So I think Maya's going to get up when I wrap up in just a couple minutes and tell you about her experience briefly. So this is just a different way of looking at that. This is what I said. After the 2-year, $5 million investment, we monitor on an ongoing basis to see how our teams are doing. Are they having that national scale impact? Were they unable to get there? What were those impediments? How can we improve our program? So we're doing continuous improvement within the program to just try to really meet our goal, which is this national scale societal impact long term with these investments. So these are the current tracks. Track E is right here in the 3rd cohort, and these are the upcoming tracks. So these have been announced, but the RFP hasn't been issued yet. So this is a great time to talk to us about what you're hoping to do before we actually get the RFP out there, where we can still give you some feedback. Track K is equitable water solutions. That's one that I worked on and links quite closely with track E, the currently funded track. The idea is to look at primarily freshwater systems and how can we develop solutions that are equitable and meet our needs into the future as a nation, because this is a really critical, pressing issue, access to clean, safe water for everybody. It is a huge challenge, and we think it is ready for investment. Track L is chemical sensing applications. And there's a report online if you're a chemical sensing expert and you want to do a deep dive and see what kinds of activities that report recommended and NSF is hoping to fund. And then M is bio-inspired design. So that's actually a pretty broad topic. Any kind of solutions that are inspired by biological systems, biological organisms. So all of these tend to be pretty broad because we're looking for that multidisciplinary engagement. This just gives you a little bit more information. We did issue this Dear Colleague letter this month. So that sends a signal to the community that we're going to issue the solicitation within a couple of months. So now is the time, if you have these interests and connections, to start really thinking about what you might propose to this track. The Dear Colleague letter does give a few more details about what we're looking for, but then once the solicitation comes out, it'll have even more details. But a great source also is those reports that came out of the workshops that we funded last fall. So I already talked through this. I don't need to say it again, but this gives you a little bit more sense of the support that the program provides as people go through it. We are still working on track integration. That is one thing I didn't mention. In phase 2, we come up with, each team has their own project, but we also come up with something across the track that we hope will be impactful at a national scale. So this slide is just talking about what we're hoping to do as far as our partnerships, different sectors that we engage in our program. As you can see, it's extremely broad, and it needs to be very broad if we're in fact going to develop national scale solutions. And I got ahead of myself. I did talk about this already. So you have websites, and you can go there for resources after the presentation. Both the TIP website and then the Convergence Accelerator website, where there's a lot of information on both of those pages. So thank you. I appreciate you having me here to talk about NSF, TIP, and the Convergence Accelerator. And I'd like to ask Maya to, she's clapping, I'd like to ask Maya to say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to Aurali for the presentation today. I already have can Blue Gap apply for the engine's proposal? 160 million. Can a region be a theme versus a location?
You just missed that one. Probably in a couple of months.
We weren't ready yet, but I think we'll be ready in 2 years to go after that. Some quick tips. The themes, of course, I think align with a lot of what we're doing here. The Convergence Accelerator, 3 new themes for some of the faculty in our colleges. What I've learned, so the curriculum I thought was great. We do have an ICOR program here at USF, and one of my students had gone through it, so I'd gone through as a mentor. For the Accelerator program, a lot of emphasis was placed on curriculum, and a few of us had to attend that curriculum. It's every week. So the funding mechanism does give and encourage faculty to buy out of teaching, and so something that you definitely will want to do. And you can justify that to NSF that you get more than one month of support on this grant. It requires a lot of time. When you write, for many of us, when we do our proposals, we have everything tasked. We know what we want to do. The minute you come to the Accelerator program, it's sort of kind of throw that aside. You're going to do a lot more of the human-centered design, right? So a lot of the interviews with people. I recommend we work a lot with anthropology, and Dr. Zarger is in the back. And so I recommend that, especially for those who are not working with the social scientists or the anthropologists, that you probably want to set that up soon. And probably look into sort of some of the questions you want to ask and get an IRB in place by the time the grant comes. Because from the first day the grant comes, you're being asked to go out and ask those questions, or pretty soon. And so in our team, we did kind of push back until we worked as a team to develop and get our IRB approved before we did some of those interviews, which sort of put us, our schedules were a little off from what NSF was doing, but we were really happy to do it. So I just encourage you to do some of these things up front. I encourage you to have someone from business probably be on your team, because when you go on to phase 2, your curriculum is focused on business development. And if you are new to that, it just helps to have someone on the team who could be tasked with doing that work. I will stop there unless anyone else from the team has something else to add. Then, yeah, and just, if USF goes after this, our project has worked with community-based consultants and new non-governmental organizations. And so just thinking as a university how we support in terms of providing support for those groups to be able to go through our system so that they get paid is something that we should probably also think of. In terms of timelines, for us, we submitted in May, and I think we heard by August, and then curriculum started, I think, September 1st. So it was for phase 1, or October 1st, it was really fast. Sometimes you start curriculum, and I think the funding had not all been here as yet, and so just be prepared for a really fast-paced but very flexible and exciting program. I think all of my colleagues could attest that we've learned a lot, and it's given us the flexibility to really try some things that we normally have never even thought of trying. And the team science piece, really important. So if USF goes after that $6 million grant, that would probably be something that we could think of in terms of capacity building for faculty in our colleges. So, thanks, Sarah.
I know online you won't be able to see it, but if the Blue Gap team could just raise their hands so everybody in the room is aware of who's part of the team, in case you want to engage with them after the talk, because it is a great team. All right, so I think we're just Q&A now. If there's any questions, I see a hand raised if someone online has a question. Okay.
Arash?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm planning for the KIPT program, and as a requirement, it says that some prior funding is needed. I'm currently in the last year of the program. I'm still funded through NSF. I think it's a good time to apply, or shall I wait until the last year is finished and then apply?
When does your year end?
It ends January.
Okay, so the question was, an individual in the room currently has NSF funding, is interested in, did you say the Partnerships for Innovation, PFI? Whether they should start planning for proposing to that, that opportunity. And my recommendation would be, now would be a great time to reach out to the program director and start having the conversation about, I've had this funding, I have this innovation associated with it, I've read your program, I think it's going to be a great place. What they can recommend for you when it would be good to apply, when you would have the best chance at getting funding for the program. But timing is important. So most of the programs within TIP, you can apply for follow-on funding while you're still in the program. Like the Convergence Accelerator teams are in their first year of their second phase, and they are already applying, some of them already are applying for follow-on funding with other organizations. I'm not aware of anyone applying for SBIR, TTR, or Partnerships for Innovation quite yet, but it's definitely time to start thinking about it while you still have the active awards, so that you don't have a gap there. You can really just think about that timing. If you had said it was going to end in April, I'd be able to give you a bit of more solid answer, but since it's not until January, you probably should just connect with the program director there and, get a sense of what they would recommend for timing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really useful information. Thanks for coming to Tampa. Remember that USF is actually 3 locations, so in your next visit, please other places. I'm in the College of Marine Science in St. Petersburg, and I'm happy to say that USF did not miss out on the opportunity for Type 2.
I know.
Steve Fraser was with us yesterday.
So my question is this: we haven't heard a lot about the timeline of particularly Type 2, but even Type 1s. So I wonder if you could elaborate to the extent you can on that.
Sure. So I am, I believe I can share that the hope, especially for the $1 million awards, is to really get through those panels quickly and get the word out. The larger investment probably will take a little bit longer to notify. Investments of that size do just take, a couple of extra months usually. So it closed in January. I'd expect by summer to start hearing back, if you're in the pool of consideration, and maybe a little longer if you're not in the pool of consideration. The question was the regional innovation engines opportunity, when to expect to hear back. I do know that team, which is part of my group, takes the same approach that we do, and Maya indicated how quickly we turn around decisions. We put our panels together before we even get the proposals. And so we typically have our panels within a month of receiving the proposals. And then depending on how complex the decision making is internally, it could take a little longer. So I know that's not a solid, like it's going to be by X date, but I would expect them to move quickly on the $1 million investments, and possibly a little bit more slowly on the big investments, just because it's the first time and there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of proposals.
Are they likely to use visits or sort of candidates?
You know, I haven't actually heard whether they're going to do, but I would assume so. He asked about site visits. So typically, NSF either does a site visit prior to funding, or for our large programs like this, we do a site visit after funding. So that's why I'm here. I'm doing the Blue Gap site visit. I would expect that there would be more than one site visit for those regional innovation engines that are selected, probably an annual one. It's a pretty sizable investment for any funding agency. So I expect there will be a lot of attention and scrutiny on whoever is selected in that program. Yep.
The Convergence Accelerator, the teams, are they typically from a single institution, or are they multidisciplinary, multi-institutional, and then, because I know you said the site visits, so then are you multiple?
Right. So the question, and I'm repeating these for the people online, I know those in the room maybe heard it, but the question was for the Convergence Accelerator program, are teams typically from one institution, or are they from multiple institutions? And then the site visits, how do those usually work? So I do not believe we funded a single institution proposal. So that should give you a pretty strong signal of what we're looking for. We really want it to be multiple organizations. So like Maya mentioned, she has community partners that are with different organizations. She has an NGO as part of the team. You have another university. Yeah, right here. Sorry. It's been 2 days of meetings. With Iowa here. So the way the site visits have been arranged for phase 2, if you make it that far, typically we do go to one site, but then people may come in, like happened in this case, or for community partners, at my last site visit, we went out to the community partners sites. So I came into the university, and then we drove all around New Orleans. So that was how they approached it. So it really depends on the project. If it's something that's a little bit more technical or computational, there may not be quite as much going around, visiting with people, but we let the teams set up the agenda for us, and this has been a great agenda. I'm a little tired out on day 2 as you're getting my presentation, but it's been great to meet the community partners. They brought everybody here, probably because it seems like the things are pretty spread out here and there's a lot of traffic. So the idea was to, bring people here and meet here.
Actually, I think Steve asked a question in relation to as it relates to engine. So at my organization for nonprofit, we also submit for a type 1, and obviously it's meetings in here on the news. So
So the question related to the regional innovation engines and when you would hear back. If you're an experienced grant seeker, you know that it can take a while, but I do know my colleagues really do want to get awards out quickly with this program because there has been so much interest and excitement about it. The new directorate is just a year old. It was the first big initiative that was pushed out. So they really want to do it right, but they also want to do it with speed, since that's part of our motto.
So with the Convergence Accelerator, after the phase 2, funding period is over, is it expected that these will be a standalone nonprofit, a standalone, for-profit business, a center within the university? What's kind of the sustainability plan that's expected?
Yeah, so the question was, what are our expectations around the continuing sustainability of our solutions that we've funded within the Convergence Accelerator program? And she asked whether it would be a standalone business, nonprofit, a center within the university. All of the above are options. It's also an option to take the solution and license it to somebody. So kind of do an exit, maybe stay as advisors, but have an existing organization pick it up and run with it if that's something that the team decides is the right path, along with a lot of coaching and a lot of conversation. We are, I'd say, agnostic to what it looks like. What we care about is that there is a plan for ongoing activity related to this almost $6 million investment that we just made in the solution. So we really want to see it continue on. We're investing in it because we believe in it. And these teams are working really hard. As Maya said, they're talking to hundreds of people throughout the project. So they build a lot of excitement for the solution. And we don't want to just have it go away at the end of the 3-year period, especially with projects like Blue Gap. And maybe you'll do a presentation at some point so people can hear more about it. But the idea is to have a really big impact on communities and especially frontline communities. So when you engage with communities and they take their time to give you feedback and to work with you on solutions, you know, there is an expectation that it's not just going to go away. So we encourage and make connections wherever we can, encourage follow-on funding, encourage different models depending on what works for the solution.
No, please join me to thank the people that's here. So well. Okay.
God, and I know that's to get